Political theater. Illusions with real impacts.
Good morning, Trumptopia. A special segment of the almost daily Zencast. Hosted by the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Let's talk Trump.
Hello and welcome back, my friends. Here I am, your inconsistent but passionate host of the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo's almost daily Zencast, featuring Good Morning Trumptopia, a special sub-segment of the show, amongst many. Let's do a really quick roundup of some of the chaotic headlines over here on the news pagey splash page on my shiny Mac desktop-y thing. Trump will compel Adam Schiff to testify in impeachment trial, according to the New York Post. The Hill says that Biden urges senators to have courage for impeachment trial. The Guardian reports that Ivanka Trump defends father with fake impeachment quote. ABC News tells us that Bloomberg is vowing to refuse donations or a presidential salary. We've heard that one before, haven't we, folks? Yeah, the fake laugh never really works, does it? I push that button once a quarter just because it's there. Okay, so what else is going on in the headline world of newsy Trumpy things? Fox News, opinion, Jeff Shepard, Trump impeachment, and Watergate. Hold on, I gotta click through. As Nixon defense attorney, I can compare them. Ooh. I swear to you, I did not plan this, but I think I want to dig a little deeper in this article. Don't nobody sue me. I don't care who you are. I'm reading this for free. No one's charging me, blah, blah, blah. All my disclaimers and warnings apply here. If you haven't heard that episode yet, I strongly recommend you push pause and go check out my warnings and disclaimers. I think I've made a couple episodes of that over the duration of my time on the Sprecher airwaves. But here we go. Let's just kind of scroll down this page and see what this article's about. It's got a recap about the Mueller thing and impeachment hearings and all the dumb sort of like, this is not a headline, it's a link to something else. I hate those. Hey, online news platforms, make your format less shitty, please. No offense, but it's kind of crap sometimes. Okay, where's the bit about... Where's the bit about Watergate special prosecutors had grand juries adopt a report containing testimony that the Astros went to the House known as a roadmap. This credit. Oh yeah. It's so this is where they're finally comparing what's going on now and with what happened to Nixon. And I did not mean to start off the show with this, but here we are. A little bit of synchronicity. Let's just give it a look here, right? Leon Jarowski is referenced here, and that was a Watergate special prosecutor. And he's quoted as saying that the House, I'm assuming back in Nixon's day, was very slow, quote unquote, in initiating their proceedings based on what the special prosecutors had rendered in their roadmap, right? And that's the thing that I think is hilarious. I'm not even going to... wait, hold on. Let's see. Archibald Cox. Weissman. Okay, this is all kinds of... Maybe because I'm trying to read this and talk to you at the same time, I'm not getting the point of, like, from where this author is coming from. Opinion, Jeff Shepard. And, like, what are they trying to say? They're... Okay, well, let's see. I'm going to read you these two paragraphs. Every legal defense begins by understanding the accusations and applicable laws. Okay. Well, that's a really noteworthy statement to make, regardless of which side you're on, because if you take a moment and breathe really deep, my dear friends, and abandon whichever side you're rooting for a hot minute, just for a split second, just stop rooting for or against either one of the sides, right? And take a zoom back and ask yourself, are the people arguing? Are the people fighting? Are the people debating this, both at the amateur, and I say that with all due respect, in other words, they have a passion for it. They're not getting paid to make these arguments, but they have a passion for it because it's an issue they are deeply concerned with, right? And also at the professional level. Like, are the people debating this as talking heads on TV and as lawyers and as the actual people in Congress? Do they really utilize a clean and clear understanding of both the accusation and the applicable law? Or, if you take a moment to really just look without judgment, without reaction, without needing to argue your talking points that you've decided are the talking points worth defending, and look at what everyone's actually doing, is it a gobbledygook mess of all kinds of slightly shenanigans to quite outrageously shenanigans? Question mark. Big, bold, glowing question mark. I ask you, friends, either side, are they truly, really digging deep and trying to cut to the bone of the legal issue? I mean, it's obvious, of course, that one side, especially if you just sit and watch, if you have been just sitting and watching the actual proceedings, right? Ding. Let's get back on course. Impeachment's proceedings proceeding. If you pay attention to what's actually been said by both sides, one side is playing good cop, and the other side is playing bad cop. And if that's the case, because mind you, right now, this is supposed to be an impeachment-like investigation. We're supposed to be really like gathering in the facts. And in their defense, the good cops are making a show of doing that. Better than the bad cops are. But both are quite clearly and obviously, like I said, if you step back and stop participating as a fan of one or the other and you just observe with clarity, it becomes obvious over time that both are really wearing the hats really bold. I've got the white hat. See, look at me. I'm the good cop. Look at the white hat on my head. And the bad cops are really being smarmy, gross, slimy, cheesy, ineffectual bad cops. You know what this makes me think of? It makes me think of Machiavelli and the cat's paw. Put a pin in that, though. We'll make a special episode about that because I've got nothing pulled up to read at you about that. I've got, other than my own recollection and someone reminding me very recently in conversation about the cat's paw and how it works. And I wish I had that bit of audio queued up, but I missed it in the initial organic conversation that I had. By the way, shout out to that friend. Great conversation. But I totally hadn't been rolling tape at the moment. And then later, when we were rolling tape, under a different set of contexts, I asked him to recap. And it's, I'll dig that piece of audio up someday and play it for you. In the context of the cat's paw axiom or thesis or whatever. But I digress. We'll just have to save that for another day because it's neither here nor there, except for the fact that it's very, very applicable, I think, on a bunch of different levels, right? But primarily, my point is that if we're going to talk about a clear, understanding of the accusation and of the applicable laws, both sides seem to be playing a little hanky-panky here. Now, it's obvious, it's blatantly, grotesquely obvious on the bad cop's side. They are throwing the kitchen sink and everything else in every direction to try to distract everybody. Most importantly, their own base. Secondly, the good cops. They're, like I said, paying tribute to this idea of a clear and simple accusation and an understanding of the applicable laws, but they're also playing it hanky-panky. What's with it being quid pro quo? Why are they obsessed with that? Why do they then have to realize, or why have they shifted, as the bad cops pointed out quite accurately, although it's annoying that they're using that in their defense, right? If you're on the good cops' side, you're annoyed at the bad cops for having thrown that in their face, because then you're like, don't really want to question. If you're a good cop supporter, if you're the one waving the white flag saying, yeah, the white hats have got it, you don't really want to ask yourself, why have they bumblefooted this? Why has it been delayed and postponed and not fervently pursued with the obvious facts that were available from the get-go? Because the most flagrant of the transgressions, in my opinion, humbly speaking, from what I admit is a limited understanding of you Americans' Constitution, because I'm from another dimension. I wasn't born here in America. I'm from another planet, from another timeline, from another time frame. I'm the worst of the illegal immigrants. I am the one that came through a portal. You can't stop me. And might as well have come in a spaceship. But I digress. That's all kinds of sci-fi nonsense. Back to the real factual argument I'm making here. My point is I have a clean, non-partisan, people accuse me of being the left and the right. People accuse me of being a good cop and a bad cop supporter. I am neither. I'm trying to point out that there's holes to be poked on both sides of each of the echo chambers, right? Why has the left, why has the resistance bungled this so badly and not nailed it down to a clear and accurate accusation? I don't get it. Because to me it's obvious from having watched Trump, say things on live television that clearly qualify. If I had said those things, I'd be in jail, right? If I was that president, and if any president before him, quite frankly, had said and done these things out loud on TV, they would have just been impeached immediately and moved away. One imagines, theoretically speaking. But then we get back to the fact that he hasn't, right? They've bungled this, they've soft-shoed it. Every time they've really brought real evidence, they've let the bad guys just poop all over it and smear campaign. They haven't stood with the vim and vigor of we have the facts with clarity, as one would hope or imagine they're capable of, right? It's like they're soft-shoeing their way towards waffling. And we're meant to believe, as always, that they are fighting the good fight. And they're just getting walloped too hard by the president himself. But he's also a bumbling nitwit who's been accused by his own supporters of not being savvy enough to have committed the crime that he's been accused of, right? The mental gymnastics, the pretzel loops of bending over backwards going on both sides is absurd. Now, the people inside the echo chambers, they're being coerced. The supporters, the base, and the participants in the political folly of drama on all levels of it, professional and amateur, because there's multiple levels, right? There's an industry around what is going on. There's a whole economy of industries around this political theatrical mechanism. As Frank Zappa pointed out decades ago, another fellow visitor from another place, politics is the entertainment department or division of the military-industrial complex. Have the bombs stopped dropping? Have the war initiatives have we achieved peace? No. But we got Trump supporters screaming at the top of their lungs about how Trump is a peacemaker, and everyone else going, are you guys cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs? And then, no one on the good cops side really thinking about how the left has never really ended any of the wars either. And the left also has some of its fingers dirty in some really mucky, bloody pies of war profiteering. And the left hasn't ever stopped really, or worse yet, is always inculcated and completely involved in, the more occult, behind-the-scenes, psyop type, democracy building, crazy paramilitary objectives and activities around the world that create the cacophony of chaos and noise and violence that everyone's trying to escape, that brings all the, it's all the web of lies and corruption and profiteering on suffering and war that no one is virtuously free of. Because the left, wow, do they wave that patriotic banner of support the troops and love the military and don't you dare question, right? Now, of course, we're going to talk about the dirty wars that the Republicans have had, but do we ever criticize Obama for being the record-breaking president of dropping more bombs than any president before him? Of course not. That never comes up. The time it comes up is when they point out that Trump has gone out of his way to exceed that record. And there's always some sort of apologistic, it couldn't be helped, that's what the war required. There's a real war on these things that we're fighting, these idolatries, these idolatrous ideologies of the terrorists, right? Full circle, my friends. All ideology is mental slavery. The white hat is a form of mental slavery, just as much as the black hat is. And thus, my friends, these lies, these reality TV show bullshittery acts of nonsensical, distractionary, get each other pissed off at each other illusions, these fake puppets. Now, whether they've been puppets their whole lives, I've talked about that at great length in other episodes, and I'll come back around to talk about it again. But that's a question we don't need to waste time arguing about, right? Because it doesn't matter where they came from and who they were before they got sucked into the system. Once they're in the system, it's quite obvious that they always end up doing the system's bidding. It just take a moment, stop rooting for your favorite team, and look at the actual record of every team. And so, my friends, I must, to bring it back to the title of the show, I understand, because people tell me all these horrible things that they do, they really have real impact. And the good things that the good guys do really do have real impact. Of course they do. Of course they do. But that doesn't mean that we should immerse ourselves in that false dichotomy of us versus themism, because it is a treadmill of meaningless advances towards some idealization of some perfect society and corruption, ruining everything at every step of the way. The solution will not be solved using the same tools that we created the problem with. Not the first person to point that out to you, my friends. But I'm telling you now, I'm quoting those words because they remain as true and as important to comprehend as ever. The solution will not be created by us using the same tools that we built the problem with. We will only perpetuate the problem. I'll leave this episode on that note to keep it nice and tight like I promised I would, because I'm getting better at it. In the meme department of memes you might have missed, to wrap it up real quick, I hopefully saved this. Where am I? Saved. I'm in the Trumptopia. I want to hit a couple of memes here that are floating around that I think are quite fascinating. One is the simple fact that we've got, an echo chamber of mocking each other as the new norm. There's several all kinds of memes going around from a position of, isn't it insane that the other side does this? And then proceeds to imply some shame or mockery about blah, blah, blah. One is is as being, I think it's either created or endorsed by Occupy Democrats, which I've been accused of being, a mind slave to, and I'm not. I just sometimes do agree with the content that they're sharing. But here's one where I think it's interesting that it's a critique of something that's a valid critique, but it's also it doesn't acknowledge that the other side kind of does the same thing. Only Republicans, and that's hypocrisy right there, because that's not true. Democrats say a bunch of lousy shit about Republicans all the time. Boom. Right? Your meme fails at the first word, at the first phrasing. Only Republicans. Not true. Would attack a decorated war hero in defense of 5-time draft. Well, okay, once you put it in the context of defending Trump, then of course. But we have plenty of examples, dear friends, of the left going out of their way to savagely attack the right just for supporting Donald Trump in a way that's unfair, biased, and, more hurtful than it helps. That's my point, right? But this is a valid critique of the right. The right claims to be patriots who love the troops, and yet here is this decorated war hero, and they're just maliciously vilifying him and maligning him and spewing hate at him. Ironically, yes, it's good to call those things out, but also where is from Occupy Democrats, or where is from the good guys in general, an acknowledgement of all the times, that they've done that they spew hurtful, rejectful, belittling, judgmental, negative commentary and judgment and words and borderline hate speech at those who stubbornly support dear old Donnie. You don't have to look too deep to find it, right? Now, like I said, they are not perfectly equal. I've been accused of making a false equivalency between the left and the right. And I'm like, no, I'm not trying to say that they're identical. I'm saying that the two wings are part of one bird, right? The good cop is still a cop. And the bad cop is still a cop. And you, my dear friend, is the person in handcuffs that both cops are trying to fuck over and throw in a cage. And that's true of how this us versus them-ism works in both echo chambers. They get you to confuse or conflate the truth with a bunch of malarkey so that you can buy into an excuse to be hate-baited against those who support the enemy. And yet, we are all one. This is a country that's supposed to be defined by unity, right? Our allegiance, our work, our devotion is supposed to be about the people. That's why the beginning of the defining document of this nation is we the people. It isn't we the political class. It isn't we the would-be oligarchs. It isn't we the rich people. It isn't we only the white people, right? So, lay down your ideological addictions, friends. Step 1. Actually, step 0. Doesn't matter which side of the spectrum you're on the spectrum. If you're clinging to political ideology, you are building a mental cage for yourself. And as the dearly beloved meme that you may or may not have seen before says, birds born in a cage think that flying is an illness. And then it also in the department of memes you might have missed, and I don't remember where I've got this saved. It might be in spiritual insights? I don't know, but I want to. There's a really great meme about practice. I just want to end this episode on it because its point is really delicious. You know how they make those flowchart memes? And by the way, those can be really, really manipulative, folks. Just because it fits in a flowchart does not mean it's actually true. Even if there's like, one of those logic flowcharts that connects yes and no and outcomes to context, like just because it looks like it works doesn't mean it actually works. You really got to dig deep past the initial sort of take it for granted responses, that they condition you to give. But the one about practice is lovely because it's once you kind of get what it's saying, it's really simple. Practice. Don't stop practicing. Everything is practice. Practice. And living our lives, we can either practice being caught up in ideological mental cages that cause us to pit ourselves against our own people. Every day that you keep clinging to those bars, you build them thicker and stronger. Every day you keep arguing against the other political party's base, you make those cages stronger because that is a form of practice. And they fool you into a merry-go-round meat grinder treadmill of practicing that. And the only way to get out of it, the only way to realize that you, that bird in the gilded cage that thinks flying is a disease, well, you got to start learning how to fly. And that means getting out of the cage you've built. And that takes practice.
And that is the latest madness from behind the orange wall. Thank you for listening to GMT, a special segment of the Almost Daily Zencast. Stay woke, Trumptopia. Stay woke.